On a crowded Manhattan sidewalk, an 8-year-old girl tugged at the sleeve of a wealthy businessman and said the unthinkable. "Please, marry my mother." James Mitchell, the powerful CEO of Mitchell Holdings, froze in shock. The documents in his hands slipped and scattered across the pavement. He blinked at the small figure in front of him. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" Never in his life had a child from the streets approached him with such a request. Busy executives brushed past, unaware of the strange moment unfolding at the busiest corner of the financial district. "My mom needs help," the girl insisted, her dark eyes shining with fierce determination. She held out a wrinkled piece of paper. "Everything about her is written here, and you look like a good man." James studied the little girl. Her name was Ruby. And then came the shock that made his blood run cold. "Her name is Diana Foster," Ruby whispered. James staggered. Diana Foster. The name hit him like a thunderclap. 15 years earlier, Diana had been his classmate at Harvard Business School, brilliant, ambitious, and deeply in love with him, until the day he betrayed her, stealing her research and shattering her dreams forever. "She mentioned my name?" James asked, his voice trembling. Ruby shook her head. "She doesn't know I'm here, but I saw your picture in her old yearbook. She always says you were friends a long time ago. She doesn't tell me what happened, but sometimes she cries when she looks at that picture." James felt dizzy. For years he had convinced himself Diana had moved on, maybe even succeeded elsewhere. But Ruby's words painted a darker truth. Diana wasn't living her dream. She was cleaning offices at night, maybe even his offices. "Why do you think I should help?" he asked, though the guilt was already clawing at him. Ruby straightened, her little hands gripping the paper. "Because my mother works 3 jobs. She takes care of elderly people during the day. She tutors children in the afternoons. At night, she cleans. And when she's done, she studies online. But sometimes she falls asleep over her books." Each word pierced James like a blade. Ruby's voice softened. "We've lived in a shelter since I was 5. Mom always says things will get better. But I know she's so tired." James closed his eyes. He remembered Diana's determination, her fire, her brilliance. And now he imagined her exhausted, struggling to survive with her daughter, while he lived in a penthouse built on the empire her stolen ideas had helped create. For the first time in years, James Mitchell felt powerless. "Because you know each other," Ruby said simply, answering the question James had almost forgotten he asked. "And because my mom always says you're very smart. But something happened, and she had to start over on her own. She never says anything bad about you, you know. She's just sad." The brutal honesty of that statement nearly knocked James off his feet. Ruby had no idea she was talking to the man who had stolen her mother's future, who had shattered her dreams and left her with nothing. "Where does your mother work now?" James asked, forcing his voice to stay steady as a terrible suspicion formed in his mind. Ruby didn't hesitate. "She cleans offices in the Whitmore Tower, from the 41st to the 51st floors. She comes home really late with her hands hurting from the cleaning supplies." James felt his blood turn to ice. Whitmore Tower was his tower. His office, on the 42nd floor, was right above the very rooms Diana scrubbed night after night. For years, she had been just steps away, cleaning the empire he had built with the research he had stolen from her. Ruby kept talking, not realizing the devastation her words were causing. "She always comes home with a sore back and swollen feet, but she never complains. She just says, 'Honest work is good work, even when it's hard.'" James swallowed hard. How did you find me?" Ruby's voice softened. "I found her yearbook under her bed when I was looking for socks. There was a picture of you two together. You had your arm around her, and she looked really happy. I searched your name on the library computer. You got really rich, didn't you? They even write about you in magazines." James nodded slowly, realizing this child was piecing together a truth that could destroy him. But more than that, she was handing him something he had never expected, a chance to make things right. "My mom is proud," Ruby said, carefully folding the paper in her hands. "She would never ask anyone for help, especially not someone from her past. But I'm not proud. I'm asking because she deserves better. And because—" Ruby hesitated, as though revealing a dangerous secret. "Sometimes I hear her crying in the bathroom. She thinks I don't hear her." The tears came suddenly, hot and unstoppable. James, the billionaire everyone feared, was now crying openly on a Manhattan sidewalk. He finally understood the full weight of what he had done. He hadn't just destroyed Diana's career, he had condemned her to a life of struggle, raising a child in pain and silence. "She talks about you kindly," Ruby whispered, her voice unexpectedly gentle as she noticed his tears. "She says you had big dreams together before things got complicated. Maybe you could have big dreams again." James looked at her, this brave little girl who had walked through the chaos of downtown Manhattan just to find him. Panic, admiration, and a determination he hadn't felt in years surged through him. Ruby didn't realize it, but she had just handed him something more valuable than any deal he had ever signed, the chance to fix the greatest mistake of his life. As the crowd rushed around him, chasing after their own ambitions, James Mitchell finally saw the truth. He had spent 15 years building an empire of glass and steel, while the only person who had ever truly mattered was struggling to survive just beneath his feet. And her daughter, courageous enough to stand before him, was offering him a second chance he didn't even deserve. If stories of courage and redemption move you, make sure to subscribe, because what James was about to discover about Diana and Ruby would not just change their lives, it would uncover secrets some of the world's most powerful people would do anything to hide. That night, James canceled every appointment and returned to his office on the 42nd floor of Whitmore Tower. For the first time in 15 years, he looked out at the city, not with pride, but with shame. Somewhere below, Diana was mopping floors with bruised hands while he signed million-dollar contracts. With trembling fingers, James opened his laptop and searched the building's temp staff records. There it was, in black and white. Name, Diana Foster. Employer, Sunrise Services. Assignment, floors 40 to 50. Night shift. Rate, $12 an hour. The brightest woman he had ever known, reduced to this. Meanwhile, the company James had built on Diana's stolen research was bringing in $12 million a month. The memory slammed into him like a tidal wave. Harvard, 2008. Diana standing at the front of the MBA class, her eyes sparkling as she presented her groundbreaking project on sustainable social housing. She spoke with fire and conviction about transforming broken communities into thriving ones through conscious development. She trusted him, James Mitchell, the man she thought was her partner, sharing every secret of her research late into the night. And then came the part James had buried deep for 15 years. The night he copied every file from her computer. The morning he stood before an investor and pitched it as his own. The moment he was handed a $2 million check for what he called his visionary idea. Diana found out 3 days later. James still remembered the look in her eyes when she confronted him. Not anger, something worse. Betrayal, heartbreak, a wound so deep it had no words. "James, I trusted you with everything. How could you?" But James had already played his hand. Using his family name, his connections, and that stolen money, he turned the tables. He accused Diana of plagiarism, forged evidence against her, and watched as the university expelled her. The word of a privileged heir against a scholarship student from a working-class family, there had been no contest. Her career was over, her reputation destroyed, and James walked away with everything. Now, sitting in his tower of glass and steel, he realized the truth he had spent years avoiding. Diana hadn't moved on. She hadn't rebuilt her life. She had been fighting to survive just beneath his feet, while he signed million-dollar contracts based on her stolen dream. The phone rang. It was Miguel, his assistant. "Mr. Mitchell, I have the information you asked for on Diana Foster." James steadied his voice. Go on. Miguel hesitated. Sir, she isn't just cleaning offices. She's been investigating. James felt the blood drain from his face. Investigating what? Real estate developments, corruption in low-income communities, bribes to city council members, forged environmental reports, and Miguel's voice dropped. Your company's name shows up in many of these documents. James's world tilted. Diana wasn't just a woman surviving, she was a woman hunting. There's more, Miguel continued. She earned her law degree 2 years ago through a night program, and she found something very dangerous for us. She never signed a confidentiality agreement when she was expelled from Harvard. Technically, she can still claim the intellectual property rights to that project. The phone slipped from James's hand. For 15 years, he had believed Diana was silenced, beaten, forgotten. But while he built an empire, she had been quietly preparing. 3 jobs by day, studying law at night, collecting evidence that could tear apart not just Mitchell Holdings, but the entire corrupt system it stood on. And Ruby, her little girl, had unknowingly handed James something he never expected. Not just a plea for her mother's happiness, but his final chance to redeem himself before Diana revealed the truth to the world. As Manhattan glowed beneath his office windows, James finally understood. He wasn't the hunter anymore. Diana Foster, the woman he had betrayed, was now the most dangerous person in his world because she had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Ruby noticed the dark circles under her mother's eyes. Mom, are you okay? You slept even less than usual. Diana smiled faintly, hiding the storm inside her. She had waited 15 years for this moment, and now every sleepless night was finally about to pay off. Diana smiled faintly, hiding the adrenaline rushing through her veins. The night before, she had finally gained access to James's personal computer. The man's arrogance was his downfall. He hadn't even changed his old college password, the name of his childhood dog, followed by his birth year. I'm fine, sweetheart, she told Ruby, forcing calm into her voice. Just working on a special project. It wasn't a lie. Her special project was the systematic destruction, through legal, public, and very visible means, of the empire that had been built on her stolen work. Ruby tilted her head. Is it about that man I met? James Mitchell. Diana nearly dropped her coffee. You? What did you do, Ruby? I looked for him, the girl replied, with the brutal honesty only a child could carry. I asked him to marry you. I thought maybe you could be happy again, like in the yearbook photo. Diana's world froze. 3 years of careful planning, 3 years of gathering evidence from the shadows, staying invisible, and her 8-year-old daughter had walked straight into the lion's den. Kneeling before her daughter, Diana's voice shook. Ruby, listen to me. James Mitchell is not a good man. He hurt me, very badly, a long time ago. I know, Ruby answered softly. That's why I asked him to help, to make things right. And in that instant, Diana realized her daughter was far more perceptive than she had given her credit for. Ruby hadn't acted out of innocence. She had acted with intent. That afternoon, Diana's prepaid phone buzzed. A voice she knew well came through. Marcus Chun, investigative journalist for New York Exposure. They had been working together in secret for over 2 years. Diana, Marcus said quickly, everything's changed. James Mitchell has hired a private security firm. They're digging into your entire life. Diana's lips curled into a cold smile. Perfect. That means he's afraid. Are you sure you want to keep going? This man has resources that don't run out. He can crush you in ways you can't even imagine. Marcus, she said, her voice steady. He already destroyed me once. He stole my career, my name, my future. He left me cleaning the very offices his fortune was built on. The difference is, this time, I'm ready. And she was. Over 3 years, Diana had built not just a case, but a network. Allies James didn't even know existed. Marcus with his access to the press. Sandra Williams, a federal prosecutor investigating corruption in real estate, and 3 more people James Mitchell had quietly ruined, each of them now her partners in a war 15 years in the making. They met that night in a shuttered church in Brooklyn. Thomas Reed, the accountant James had framed for tax fraud. Patricia Lopez, the architect blacklisted after James stole her designs. David Kim, the young developer forced into bankruptcy by fabricated violations. "He's panicking," Thomas said. "My contacts in his legal department say he's lost control." "Good," Diana replied. "Panic means mistakes, and mistakes mean evidence." Patricia gave a bitter laugh. 15 years I've waited for this. But are we sure your plan will actually work?" Diana opened a thick folder filled with documents, photographs, recordings. Years of evidence, meticulously compiled. "This isn't just a plan," she said. "It's a symphony, and each of you is an essential note." The room fell silent as they realized how far she had gone. Diana hadn't just tracked James's financial crimes. She had mapped out his entire empire of corruption, the bribes, the displacements, the forged reports, every move cataloged and verified. "Is the magazine ready?" Diana asked. Marcus nodded. 5 full pages in our special edition on real estate corruption. But your daughter complicates things. If James suspects you sent her, he will suspect, Diana cut in calmly. And when he does, he'll come to confront me. And when he confronts me, she gave a thin smile that made everyone's blood run cold. He'll discover the Diana Foster of 15 years ago no longer exists. The woman standing before you is someone much more dangerous. David leaned forward, concern in his eyes. And if he tries to hurt you, or Ruby? Diana's hand brushed against the recorder in her pocket, the one that held James's own words, admitting to multiple crimes. Then he'll learn something else about me. I've gained more than a law degree in the past 15 years. She rose, closing the folder with finality. James Mitchell thought no one was paying attention, but I've been here the whole time. 3 floors below his office, cleaning up his mess, documenting every lie, every theft, every crime. As the others left the church, Diana remained behind in the quiet, staring at Ruby's photograph tucked inside her wallet. Her daughter, the reason she fought, the reason she endured when it would have been easier to give up. And now, for the first time in years, Diana Foster could see the end game approaching. Ruby had accelerated the timeline. But maybe that was exactly what Diana needed. James was already cracking, panicking, stumbling, showing his true face. Soon he would realize that the cleaning lady beneath his feet was, in truth, the only person alive who could bring down everything he had lied, stolen, and betrayed to build. In the shadows of the abandoned church, Diana Foster finally allowed herself a rare smile. 15 years of sweeping up other people's messes, and now it was time to expose the biggest mess of all. The game had begun the moment Ruby pressed that crumpled piece of paper into James's hand. What he didn't yet understand was that his own daughter had just delivered the first piece of a puzzle Diana had been building for years, one that, when completed, would reveal nothing less than his total destruction. James woke Monday morning with a knot in his stomach. He told himself Diana was just a desperate woman, clinging to survival, but the memory of Ruby's eyes, that unnerving mix of innocence and determination, wouldn't leave him. At 9 sharp, Miguel burst into the office without knocking, his face pale. "Mr. Mitchell, we have a serious problem." He held out a tablet with trembling hands. On the screen blazed the headline, "The Empire Built on Lies: How James Mitchell Stole Projects and Destroyed Lives to Become a Billionaire." James felt the blood drain from his body. The first photo was of him and Diana at Harvard graduation. The following pages laid everything bare: how he had stolen her research, how he had weaponized his privilege to destroy her career. But that was only the beginning. "My God," James whispered, scrolling. Photographs of bribes, audio recordings of late-night conversations, forged environmental reports, 15 years of crimes, compiled with surgical precision. The phone lit up. Shareholders, lawyers, investors, everyone demanding answers he didn't have. How did they get all of this? He asked, his voice cracking. Miguel pointed to a line in the article. The evidence was gathered over 3 years by attorney Diana Foster, who worked at Mitchell Holdings as a cleaning staff member while secretly documenting company activities. James dropped the tablet. She hadn't just been mopping floors. She had been dismantling his empire piece by piece, 3 levels below his office. Every document left carelessly on his desk, every whispered deal behind closed doors. She had captured them all. "There's more, sir," Miguel stammered. "The FBI is here. They have a search warrant." Through the massive windows, James saw press vans pull to the curb, reporters jostling with cameras. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Diana Foster. We need to talk. I'm on the ground floor." James descended to the lobby like a man heading to his own execution. Diana stood waiting in a tailored suit, no trace of the woman he imagined in a cleaning uniform. Beside her, Ruby clutched a leather briefcase. "Diana," James's voice cracked. 15 years, James," she said evenly. 15 years cleaning up the mess you left, literally and figuratively. 15 years watching you grow rich on my work, while I scraped together enough to give my daughter a shred of dignity." James glanced at Ruby, who stared at him with unsettling clarity. Half pity, half accusation. "You used your daughter to manipulate me." "No," Diana said firmly. "Ruby acted on her own. She wanted you to make things right. The difference is, I was ready for you, no matter what move you made." She opened the folder Ruby carried and slid it across the table. "These are the documents for the lawsuit I'm filing against you and Mitchell Holdings. Restitution for the profits you made from my research. 15 years of royalties, plus damages." James swallowed hard. "How much?" $2,800,000,000, Diana replied without hesitation. Her first real smile in 15 years cut across her face. Coincidentally, the exact market value of Mitchell Holdings today. James's legs buckled. This will destroy me." "No, James," Diana said softly but mercilessly. "This will give you what you gave me 15 years ago, the chance to start from nothing. The difference is, I never stole from anyone to climb." Outside, FBI sirens wailed closer, the flashing lights reflecting in the glass doors of the tower. James Mitchell's empire was collapsing, piece by piece, exactly as Diana had planned. James stared out the window as federal agents poured into the building. "You planned all this," he muttered, finally grasping the full extent of his defeat. "I prepared for justice," Diana corrected calmly. "There's a difference. You taught me long ago that people like me have to be 10 times smarter just to earn half the credit. So that's exactly what I became." Ruby stepped forward and held out her small hand. "You can still be a good person," she said, with the wisdom of a child raised in struggle. "My mom always says, it's never too late to do the right thing." James looked down at her. The brave little girl who had changed everything by asking him to marry her mother. She didn't even realize she had given him one last chance at redemption, or sealed his destruction. As the agents closed in, and the cameras captured his humiliation, James understood something no rival had ever forced him to face. Diana had beaten him at his own game, using the same rules he had once twisted, but with one crucial difference. She had fought for justice, not greed, and in the lobby of the tower he had built with stolen ideas, James Mitchell finally understood some debts can't be repaid with money, only with the truth. 6 months later, the echo of applause filled the Harvard Business School auditorium. Diana Foster walked the same halls where she had once been disgraced, this time as a guest speaker in the course Ethics in Business and Social Justice. The room was overflowing, students, professors, journalists, all eager to hear the woman who had toppled one of the most powerful real estate empires in America with nothing but patience, intelligence, and a phone camera. "True revenge," Diana told the silent crowd, "isn't destroying the one who hurt you. It's building something greater than they could ever imagine. Ruby, now 9, sat proudly in the front row. She wore the uniform of Riverside Academy, the elite school once closed to her family. Diana had used the $2.8 billion settlement, not for luxury, but to create the Foster Foundation for Social Justice, a force dedicated to providing scholarships and free legal aid to victims of corporate exploitation. In just 6 months, the foundation had already helped more than 300 families. Meanwhile, James Mitchell had lost everything. His company dissolved, his assets liquidated. The man who once ruled boardrooms now rented a 1-bedroom apartment and worked as a small-town realtor, making modest commissions. His punishment wasn't poverty, it was irrelevance. James Mitchell was forgotten, ordinary, powerless. As Diana left the auditorium, a young black student approached her shyly. "Professor Foster, I have an idea for an app that could help communities track predatory gentrification, but I don't know if anyone would take me seriously." Diana smiled, remembering her younger self. "Tell me about it," she said warmly. "And this time, let's make sure no one steals your dream." Ruby watched her mother speaking to the student and felt her chest swell with pride. Diana wasn't just helping one person, she was building an army of voices that would never again be silenced. The little girl who once asked James Mitchell to marry her mother hadn't just given him his last chance at redemption, she had given justice to an entire community. Diana had learned the ultimate truth. The best revenge isn't exposing those who hurt you. It's turning your deepest scars into the source of your greatest strength and building something that ensures others will never face the same pain. And as the Foster Foundation grew, one truth rang louder than any other. Justice may move slowly, but when it arrives in the hands of those who refuse to give up, it arrives complete.